And what we're trying to do today is to bring people together. So I used to work for a small tech company called AT&T and worked with the employee resource groups, not only the Hispanic ASEMOS group, but also with 4 other ERGs. And what we would do is that if there was a great program, we would share that as a best practice and collaborate. So it wasn't just one great silo of a nonprofit or one great ERG. It's how do we share this information? How do we share the resources together? So that was the focus, and that's the mission of what we're trying to do right now. So we're just welcoming you. Camille is with Expandy TV. She has a streaming TV channel, and she's going to be in the lobby of the theater across the way doing some recording of interviews of folks. And then Carmen Milagro said, Ed, I'd like to have you become president of a new foundation. So we're just brand new. We're basically started this spring. And this is our first opportunity to bring people together, create programs, network, and move forward from there. We've got a lot going on at the national level with elections, and people right now are confused. How do we do this? Let's partner together. Let's communicate together. So one of the things we want to do here in Native American Heritage Month is to acknowledge the land that we're on. So I did my own DNA, and I found out that, yes, Vargas Martinez, indigenous, my paternal grandmother was Yaqui, but I also found I had French, I had Spain, I had Portugal, I had Norwegian countries, 6% from African countries. So to me, the message here is that we're all human beings. It's not us versus them. And what we're seeing right now is like social media is separating people. We don't fall into that. We don't want to do that. We work together, we relate. For me here, it's familia. That's the core. How do we take that energy? How do we reach out to other people? How do we bring people together and move forward? So, Camille, you're from the East Coast. You're 3 hours ahead of us. Why don't you say a few words, and then we'll turn it over to Carmen for the land acknowledgement.
Well, I am Camille Garrick with Expandy TV. I am out of Atlanta, Georgia, just in case you couldn't guess from the accent. But I am a proud Latina, originally from Roswell, New Mexico. And I just want to say that Expandy TV is so proud to join with DIVINA World Foundation to create meaningful spaces, real connections, relatable materials. Meeting Carmen she's like my soul sister. And I am just so grateful to be able to come out here and to meet every one of you. I look forward to it. Let's talk. And like he said, we're going to be doing some interviews. He's pointed out some people he would like interviews with. And so I'll probably come up and surprise you and say, hey, come on, let's go do an interview with Ed Vargas. So, but I look forward to speaking to every one of you. And I'm just so glad to be here.
Well, thank you both. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. My name is Carmen Milagro. I am the founder of DIVINA World Foundation. And for more information, make sure you go to our website, divinaworldfoundation.org. And one of the things that we have talked about between us and what we're trying to create here is that idea of bringing people together, yes. But what's the ultimate purpose of DIVINA World Foundation? The ultimate purpose is to be more inclusive. Right? Especially as we honor and acknowledge Native American Heritage Month, we want to provide the opportunities for people to come together from all over, which means the metaverse, which means a global coming together. And what do we do with all this knowledge that all of us are going to be experiencing today and learning and hearing about best practices and great ideas and nonprofits doing this work over there and leaders leading communities over here? What do we do with all of that knowledge? For me, the ultimate goal is to share that with our future generations, our young people. And most of those folks, most of young people right now are living their lives in the metaverse, in live stream, in gaming. So we want to take all this content. The objective today is to record all of this information and put it out into the metaverse and connect our elder generations with our younger generations. So that's the ultimate overarching goal, and I can talk about that for days. And we've got some things in the works that we can't just mention just yet, but we've got a lot of very exciting projects coming up. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Ed, and we'll get this part of the program
So the land
started.
we're on here is with the Tamian Nation, and I went to school at Santa Clara University, and we had Ohlone people there. So today I will read a land acknowledgement for the Tamian Nation, and we're so fortunate to have two people that will come up, we'll introduce them, to play music, again, with our blessing. So, we acknowledge that the city of San Jose is the Aboriginal homeland of the Tamian Nation since time immemorial, and recognizes the continued persistence and resilience of culture, community, despite the adverse impacts of settler colonialism. The Tamian Nation continues to have a relationship with the land, one of deep respect, agreement, and reciprocity, collaborating to help maintain balance. DIVINA World Foundation acknowledges and supports the Tamian Nation in solidarity and commitment to partnership, advocating for a more equitable and inclusive future. These are our sponsors. So Expandy TV is the streaming TV channel. And today you just saw Camille Garrick. She's the founder of that. And again, it's not just people in a room. How do we use media to spread the word, to communicate, to partner, to collaborate? We're so fortunate to have people from the city of San Jose involved with agencies. And a lot of the people that we're talking about today don't know where resources are. How do we partner together so that we can collaborate and change what's going on at the national level? So we have Expandy TV, DIVINA World Foundation. Our focus, again, is helping underserved communities around the world. I did a lot of work with the farm workers in Half Moon Bay. We can talk about that later. And we're so pleased to have here at the Mexican Heritage Plaza, have the support from this organization. We have Melissa, is she still here? So we're very fortunate. Thank you to the Mexican Heritage Plaza. Yeah.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Mexican Heritage Plaza. My name is Melissa. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships. I see a lot of familiar faces here, so welcome back to our space. And if this is your first time, thank you for joining us. I am part of, and our team back there, we're all part of the School of Arts and Culture. And so we are a nonprofit that is tasked with being the permanent operators of this beautiful facility, which is a city-owned building. And so this is a really special place, and we feel really fortunate that we get to host summits like the one happening today, community events, concerts, workshops, resource fairs, and everything in between. There's a lot of historical significance to this space. I can go on, but for the sake of the couple minutes, one really notable thing that happened here, Cesar Chavez held one of his first grocery store boycotts here.
Has anybody, Cesar Chavez? Anybody?
In case anyone is familiar with the iconic Cesar Chavez, it happened here on this site before it actually became the Mexican Heritage Plaza. And one thing I do want to point out, if you go to that corner, right where Alum Rock Avenue is at, and you go outside, you'll see four corners. And Carlos Santana is being honored. Los Tigres del Norte, Linda Ronstadt. So check those out too, because you're standing on history here in the Bay Area, the music that we have here. It just brings people together around the world. Yeah.
So thank you for your words and your support here.
Of course.
And thank you to the staff back there all over here.
Shout out to our production team for making all of this happen.
Quick round of applause. Thank you.
I hope you all have a wonderful event here today. And if you all need anything, we're over there in the main office. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Melissa.
So thank you so much for being here this morning. My name is Ana Dapelo-Garcia. I'm the founder and president of Lean and Latinas, as Ed was mentioning. I'm so far from you.
I know, maybe I need to come
I
closer.
have to get closer to you. I'm also a senior manager of diversity, equity, and inclusion at Stanford Healthcare. So I have the distinct pleasure of moderating the first morning's panel with my esteemed speakers here that I'll do a more formal bio on. So a little bit kind of to set the stage here. So this will be a thought-provoking session with a focus on representation, unconscious bias, and gender equity. So we'll just take a little bit of a pause there about unconscious bias. We all have unconscious bias at some level. And the trick a bit about it is that you may not necessarily be aware of unconscious bias, but we all have it. And what is it? It's really around prejudice or a stereotype that individuals hold about certain groups of people that they are not consciously aware of. So really, it's getting conscious of that. And the very fact that we're here today is, I really believe, to really learn about other people is to immerse yourself in the culture of other people. So that's one of the reasons we're here today. And thank you, Ed, for hosting this. So really, to think about what can we do to be more aware of unconscious bias. Now, on the topic of gender equity, which is also one of our topics today, let's first define it. It really means addressing gender inequities that limit a person's ability to access opportunities to achieve better health, education, and economic opportunity based on their gender. And there's other pillars of access that could be barriers for people of certain genders. So I mentioned here today, I'm here with two amazing panelists that will sort of dive into these topics, but I first want to do sort of proper introductions and bios. So to my left is the amazing Zulma Maciel. She has over 25 years of public experience and is a versatile leader with expertise in public policy development, local government administration, and legislative work. In July 2015, Zulma became the first director of the Office of Immigrant Affairs for the city of San Jose. In 2020, Zulma was appointed as the inaugural director of San Jose's Office of Racial and Social Equity. Zulma's diverse leadership experiences, track record of authentic community partnerships, and results-driven approach has enabled Zulma to live out her calling in this role. In her spare time, Zulma volunteers on local nonprofit boards and regularly enjoys hiking and Pilates, which I've always wanted to try. Zulma is binational, Mexico and US citizen, bilingual and bicultural. So let's do a warm welcome for Zulma.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So a little bit about Ed. I think we all definitely know Ed. We'll do a formal bio here. Ed has been active throughout his career as an executive in the packing industry, international B2B publishing, telecommunications, and consulting with strategic planning, marketing, and collaborations to make a positive change. After 20 years active in 5 employee resource groups and 10+ years of e-commerce program management with AT&T, Ed is a passionate advocate for the ethical and humane use of tech for social good impacts. Ed was the first in his family to attend college with a BSc and a JD from Santa Clara University and completed executive management publishing programs at Cornell University and the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University. Ed is a mentor with Conectado.com, the Miller Center for Social Entrepreneurship, and a lifelong musician playing guitar in cover bands and lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. So welcome, Ed, to this
And
panel.
if I could just add, you have to check out her LinkedIn profile. It's just amazing. But I do want to also say, in 2017, Anna was named Woman of the Year by the Women's Healthcare Executives. She served as state commissioner with the California State Senate for Cost Control in State Government and is currently Vice Chair and Board Member for USF. And you got your master's at USF and also a college here at St. Mary's.
Yes, I did. Yes.
And in 2018, she got the Top Latino Leaders Award from the National Diversity Council. 2019, she was appointed by the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors to the Women's Equality 2020 Leadership Council and was chosen by the Silicon Valley Business Journal for a Latino Leadership Award. And she's been featured in small publications like Forbes, National Public Radio, and the Wall Street Journal as well. So I'm just honored to have her. And Shulma, thank you.
Well, thank you. I did grow up here in San Jose. I'm proud to say that. So right off McLaughlin, Tully, Story Road, way back, way back. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. All right, so we're going to get started with Suma first. So very exciting to hear about the fact that you're this inaugural director, so congratulations on that. I feel honored to be sitting here with you, and you're doing the work that gets me excited, and thank you for that. So tell us a bit about your office and the role that it has in driving equity at City Hall, and share some of the key strategies your office is working on to address gender equity for underserved communities.
Yeah. Is this on? Oh, good. I can hear myself. First of all, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Ed, for the invitation. Thank you, Anna, for moderating this session. People often ask me, what does the director of the Office of Racial and Social Equity do? And what is the role of the office? So I'm going to try to explain this as briefly as possible. Because there's also sort of a misconception about what we can actually do in terms of trying to eliminate racial disparities in San Jose. And we have a role in that, as well as businesses, nonprofit organizations, and other quasi-institutional organizations, government.
Your first slide is up.
Oh, thank you. And so that's just really a backdrop. I'm not going to speak to all the pieces in this slide, but what's really important to understand is that the City of San Jose, as a government organization that serves about 1 million people, that has about 7,000 employees, that has over 20 departments from the airport to the zoo, there are things that we can do to ensure that we improve outcomes for communities in San Jose that have historically been underserved and under-resourced. And as a result of those being underserved, under-resourced, and perhaps have had historical policies that have not benefited communities, and I'm speaking specifically to Latino, American, Indian, and Black. The result of that over years and decades is that you'll find that educational outcomes, housing outcomes, economic outcomes, health outcomes and the data is there, Latinos and Black people and American Indian are worse off than any other population. And it's not just a coincidence. We have to look at all the decisions that have been made in the past that have resulted in what we're seeing today. And so our role as a small office of 8 in the Office of Racial and Social Equity is to minimize those disparities by teaching others in the organization how to build their capacity to provide racial equity analysis on all things that we do, so that when we make recommendations on budgets or we make recommendations on policies to the people who hold the power, elected officials, that they are better informed about the benefits or the harm of the particular policies or budget decisions that they're making. Make no mistake, this is really hard work. It's very difficult, and you could be very passionate about advancing racial justice. But you also have to have the skills to be able to do that. And so what we do is to embed equity analysis in what we do. And the most important and most difficult aspect of what we do is to shift culture in a way that will sustain this work so that this work endures beyond the time that I'm going to be there. The other thing I want to say is that this work wouldn't happen independently just with the government organization. It requires community advocacy and community to support the work, like the Office of Racial Equity and before the Office of Immigrant Affairs. It was community that really demanded that these offices be put in place. It takes political will by elected officials, and it takes the administration to be prepared, right, to have the infrastructure to do this. So this is a cyclical process, and that's what this slide is about. You don't need to show the next slide because it gets more into the how we embed this in all departments and core service areas in the city of San Jose. But the final thing that I want to say is around the gender equity piece. We know that, for example, in the city of San Jose of almost 7,000 employees, we have a pretty good representation of women in the workforce and people of color. We also know that we represent the community really well, but that's not enough. When you begin to look at where women sit in the organization, this is where you find some disparities. So there is some work that we're doing internally to try to manage that. There's examples of where the fire department is trying to increase the number of firefighters and paramedics that they have in the department. There's a goal that the San Jose Police Department has to have 30% of their police department's workforce be represented by women. And so there's a long range and long stretch goals, but there's still a lot of work that we have to do. And it's not just about representation, it's about making policies that actually work in favor of women and mothers, working moms and family that are family friendly. So it's not just about representation, it's also creating the conditions where women are going to thrive in the workplace.
Thank you for that. And congratulations to the city of San Jose, but you're sharing what is unfortunately true. It's the lack of women of color in roles in the C-suite in particular. So for example, there was a recently published State of Latinas in Corporate America report that is based on research by Lean In and McKinsey. And I just want to ask the audience, what percent of Latinas do you believe occupy the C-suite in corporate America? Give me a number. What percent of Latinas? 2%. Okay, we have 2, 5. 1.5. Well, it's 1%. 1% of C-suite roles Latinas occupy across corporate America. So I just love that you brought up sort of the gender equity part and the lack that many organizations have a lot of work to do in this space, but we really need to close that gap. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to switch over to you, Ed. Okay. So Ed, I understand you're a mentor at Miller Center of Social Entrepreneurship at Santa Clara University. And as an employee resource group leader, what can you tell us about these experiences and how it has impacted your thoughts on unconscious bias?
Thank you. So yes, I got my business and law degrees at Santa Clara. And when I was an undergraduate, someone down the street was going after his computer science engineering background. His name was Jeff Miller. And fast forward, he did very well in Silicon Valley. He donated $25 million and started the Miller Center for Social Entrepreneurship. So they focus on entrepreneurs around the world trying to help either the environment or an underserved area where they're at. And when we're talking to venture capital people, wealthy Caucasian males in Silicon Valley, and they did their great work and very well-to-do, that may not be the same cultural situation if you're a Latina from Venezuela or Mexico, or you're an African woman from Uganda. Their unique situation and what they're dealing with, that needs to be a better conversation. So at the Miller Center, I was a mentor for 2 years, and then talking to other mentors saying, how can we really upscale? How can we help them be the most effective mentor to entrepreneurs around the world? And so we said, well, let's do an unconscious bias work group. And so from that perspective, we said we need to acknowledge we all have biases. For example, when I was in the first company that I worked for, I would be traveling across the Midwest, to visit other cities. And when I would get in the Midwest in Chicago, I'd be on another flight sitting next to people from the Midwest. And they say, wait a minute, your last name is Vargas, you've got a business and a law degree? Because the stereotype they have is, oh, I must be something else, a gang member or something. They're stereotypes. So in the slides that I'm going to go through, we're talking about everybody has unconscious bias. You get up in the morning and you already think, I'm going to do this without necessarily having all the information. When we're under stress, when a lot of information bombards us, we go with our gut reaction sometimes. So there are certain types of biases that focus on what that is. Sometimes people already have made up their mind and they're looking for things to validate their decision process. when we're talking about people that want to intimidate others or bully, and they want everybody to follow along, that's another type of bias. So what's important here is that with the Miller Center, we're working to help the mentors be more effective. Have those kinds of conversations with these mentees from whether they're the US, because we're trying to get them in a position after they go through the coursework, who's on your board? How do you build from there? How do you scale up from there? That's the idea. So we're trying to give them the conversation so that the mentor is not giving them homework, saying, check the box, you turned in your homework, great, now you're a super entrepreneur. No, they need the tools, they need to know how to relate to people. And what I've always started with is credibility. If you establish credibility with whomever, a business partner, somebody that you're working with, on a team, in a corporation, start with credibility. That's how you build trust. And from trust, if you give respect back, 99% of the time you get respect back. Quick example, I was worked for a company in non-wovens industry. I had 3 hats: publisher, editor, conference director. And we were doing 5 consecutive day conferences in the US about this progressive or developing industry. And the parent company bought a trade show in Japan, in Tokyo. And they said, we want you to do your non-wovens conference there in Tokyo. And so that I'm doing that the following year. Well, they didn't know the language, didn't know anybody there. How did I do that? So I looked up and found out, why weren't we getting these senior executives coming to our conferences? We would see somebody from their company, but it wasn't the CEOs or the tops of the organizations like we were getting in this developing industry. So I did a little homework, and I found that in the Japanese culture, if they did not speak impeccable English, they would lose face or feel embarrassed. And from that perspective, I said, well, what if we would take the approach, like in the United Nations, simultaneous translation, so that the speaker could speak in Japanese or the speaker could speak in English. The audience is wearing headsets, and they could click the button, they could hear it in either language. Bingo. That established that rapport that I had with the gentleman that was the CEO of his company and the president of their trade association in Japan. I met him at a trade show in the US. And what he then asked me to do, once he understood what the concept was, he invited me to Japan, take a trip in 3 cities, introducing me to the CEOs in that industry there. And he translated my presentation, saying that they would like to do this in simultaneous translation. And again, I had my business card in Japanese, and I bowed down. And so you understand a culture, you embrace that culture, you see how you're perceived. That, to me, has been the way that I've always tried to work, is that part of it was being in a band. You know, it's not me playing my favorite songs. It's how do I get people to come together and get on the dance floor? So from that perspective, unconscious bias, you can work through those. You need to acknowledge it and to have sometimes difficult conversations. I can't believe how difficult it's going to be going forward with our government the way we're structured right now. But from my perspective, this is how we start. We collaborate, we communicate at several different levels, whether you're a corporate ERG, whether you're a nonprofit, if you're an agency. How do we share information and partner together? How do we've got problems like climate, for example. There's no easy answer to that. It's going to take everybody working together.
No, I love that response. And at Stanford Healthcare, we have 8 employee resource groups, everything from the Black Employee Resource Group to Latinx, Latina, Latino, Pride, women. And I actually encourage employees to join all of them. And it's really an opportunity to, again, as I mentioned earlier, sort of immerse yourself in the culture of other people. But sort of, we don't want to make this a political, because lots of feelings going on right now with the recent election. But I think it's also a lot of listening, and that's what I find myself doing, and really checking my own bias, checking my own thinking, and trying to sort of open up my mind to differences that I may not need to agree with, but I really want to understand differences because that's just inherent in who we are in our different cultures and gender and however else that we might identify.
As an example, my dad was an Army Air Force veteran in World War II. My wife is Japanese American. And all my relatives on her side of the family, aunties, with the exception of 2 people, were in internment camps. That's here in California. And the gentleman, my father-in-law, was also in the Army fighting for our country. And yet when he died, at his service, the priest got up and unfortunately said, acknowledged his career, but said he was dishonorably discharged. And the room just like a shock is like, that's not the situation. He was honorably discharged, but he made this mental error. And I looked around the room and I had the feeling that all the Japanese American people there didn't have the voice to say, wait a minute, they were just, their heads down and they were just really suffering. So I said, wait a minute. I got up and I interrupted him. And I said, excuse me, you may not have been aware, but you made the statement that he was dishonorably discharged. I know for a fact he was. And when I raised that to his attention, oh, I didn't mean that. He just made an error. So whether it was a bias, but just think if he did not get corrected, that would live with that family. So that's what I'm asking of all of you. Those situations that you see, stand up.
Hey, Ed. Oh, man, you choked me up. Hey, everybody. Name's Frank, and voice is everything. You know, last week, I'm a resident of Santa Clara, and there was this kid who was placed in a shelter, didn't have a mom, star of a football team, bullied because he was homeless, right? And my wife, Molly is my wife. She's a silent leader, but she gets things done behind the scenes. She's amazing. There was no news coverage on this kid. This kid who took his life, my wife emailed KTVU Channel 2, and finally was on the news last night. And Molly's like, no. I said, no, that was your email. Because I've seen your writing, and I've seen how your voice elevates the community. So thank you for that. Voice is everything. Yeah. And guess what? I am not going to be quiet in 2025 and beyond.
Thank you for that. And
Frank Carbajal, thank you.
Frank Carbajal, who's an icon in our community and is the founder of the Silicon Valley Latino Leadership Summit, which he just held. So I'm happy to see you again, Frank. We saw each other on Sunday at the Latina Coalition brunch. And I'm so happy that your team won, because I see your 49ers sweater. So I'm happy that happened. And you know what? Thank you for the support of the Latina community, because my husband would not have been there on game day. And you were there. So gracias for that. Gracias. So I'm going to actually pose a question here to our 2 panelists, Suma and Ed. So there's a lot here. We could probably go on for hours on this topic, just sort of with the election, the many ways in which we identify as people. There's just so many directions that we can go with this, and the wonderful work that Suma is leading in the city of San Jose. But I think we all have an opportunity to take action, to make a difference. We're sitting here for a reason with each other, having this conversation. So from your perspective, Suma, what actions do you think we can take as individuals, as company leaders, to eradicate hopefully to eradicate some of the issues that we've been talking about?
I think the first thing we need to do is to understand that no individual and no individual institution is going to be able to eradicate, racial disparities, gender disparities, and other. This is a moment for us to reflect on ourselves, on the assumptions that we've been making all along about either the work that we're doing or about other people or about the way that this election could have gone. I actually want to offer 2 things. The first one is, in this moment of reflecting and looking in the mirror, I'm reminded of a book that I was just about to talk to Gerardo about, called The 4 Pivots by Sean Ginwright. The 4 pivots speaks to things that I think I'm going to have to reread the book because it talks about what we ought to be doing today and even leading up to today. And the first one is moving from a lens to a mirror. So we're so focused on looking and inspecting and interrogating other people, other institutions, other communities, sort of in an othering fashion. But really, we need to put the mirror up to ourselves and question our assumptions. I also think it's very appropriate that while we're celebrating Native American Heritage Month, this is a really good time for us, and this wasn't in the book, this is my own doing. We need to decolonize our mind. And because a lot of the way that we've been moving in this world has been from a very colonized mindset, and we continue to perpetuate that, and nothing is changing as a result of that. So that's a side one. The second thing that Professor Jen Wright talks about is from moving from transaction to transformation. Well, all the things that we do daily are super important. Are they the things that actually help us transform systems and make transformative change? The third one is from moving from problems to possibilities, which is we spend a lot of time admiring the problem. We spend a lot of time wanting evidence about the problem. That's the colonized part in this, though. We want evidence. We want data. We know what the problems are, so let's talk about the possibilities instead. And the fourth one is moving from hustle to the flow. For those of us who worked tirelessly during the last Trump administration here in San Jose, we were in a hustle, we were in a frenzy, we were in firefighter mode, we were trying to block the federal government from harming our communities. It's time that we take a look at about how do we actually build on the infrastructure that we built back then, ensure that it's infused with funding so that we continue, and also really take care of ourselves so that we maintain a flow. I think that, again, this is a long game. There are a lot of things that we need, brilliance, your brilliance in our communities, and there are many spaces in the communities where, you can get involved. I'm going to do one quick plug. If you have a curiosity about how local government works and how you can become civically engaged, we launched an online civics masterclass program. It's self-paced, it's online, it's in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, soon will be in Chinese. You could take that class to understand how does government work and what are ways that you can participate in the public process. You'll find that on the Office of Racial Equity's Racial and Social Equity webpage, and you could sign up. It's online, it's free, just to give you a taste of what it looks like for local civic participation.
Thank you so much. There were so many quotes that I had to write down.
Oh, you're taking notes.
Lens to a mirror. I love that.
It's the book, The 4 Pivots. It's all in there.
I love that. Question our assumptions. That was really amazing. Problems to possibilities. I love that. Thank you so much. And actually, I'm going to look at that course that you have on there. So thank you for that. So same question, Ed. What actions do you think we can all take to make a difference? And I really love that you underscored eradicate. I think that's sort of my optimistic brain, but there's a lot of work there, and the work will not only be in this generation, but unfortunately, likely in the next generation. But any ideas that you have or actions that we can take, either as a community, Ed, or as individuals?
Sure. I'm a lifelong learner. It's not just me having these certificates on the wall. It's learning the technology we have today, and we'll be getting into that later on. Particularly with this audience, where we're trying to help indigenous people, which is including me, again, establish your credibility, build trust, give respect to get respect back. That, to me, if you're talking to indigenous people, learn about the colonization history. There was a great, in Hispanic Heritage Month, John Leguizamo had a program called Voices. And the first session of that, he went through the history of how many tribal nations there were in all of North America, Central America, South America. And when the Spaniards came over, for example, the size of Madrid, and these are the people riding the boats coming over here, and guess what? They took gold, they took silver back, and they had more money to do more of that. But what we're saying here is that there were people here, the size of Teotihuacan was 5 times the size of Madrid. And then one of the challenges we had to deal with was that they had viruses in Europe at that time that killed millions of people because they didn't have that protection. They weren't given medicine to deal with that. So that's the history. Don't put that on the indigenous people to tell you about that. You have the opportunity to learn yourself. Again, listen more, talk less, have a conversation where you're not telling them already what the way it is. It's have a conversation, learn from that, and go in the direction. Have those difficult kind of conversations. Quickly, I'll also show a slide here. During COVID, I had a chance to work with Procter & Gamble. They were providing a truckload of retail care products, retail personal care, household care products, value of about $500,000. And they were donating those to organizations that could pay the shipping costs from Cincinnati to wherever. So I worked with two organizations, Ayudando a Latinos a Sanar in Half Moon Bay and Celebration Nation, and we split a truckload. So each of them paid about $8,000, and they got $250,000 in product that they were able to give away to the people that they support. And that got me to learn about the cost of housing in Half Moon Bay. A farm worker makes $25K a year, no benefits, no health care. And there were two families living in a one-bedroom apartment. So I worked together with Belinda Hernandez Arriaga from ALAS, with Victoria Sanchez de Alba, and we made a presentation. We knocked on the door of the city and said, you have this dormant property that's been sitting here idle for 7 years and you've done nothing with it. What if you demolish that and we work with us so that we can make that affordable housing for senior farm workers? And now, fast forward, we have a $42 million project. We're working with Mercy Housing. It's in Half Moon Bay. We got approval finally through the Planning Commission, which was not in my backyard, a lot of that mentality. But partnering with Mercy Housing, ALAS, also with the Sobrado organization, they donated $500,000. We've now got $8 million. It's being funded with tax credits from investors. And the key is using CERNA funds. So with senior farm workers and CERNA funds that only make $25K, they'll be able to pay what they can afford, not $1,000 or more per apartment. So, and that's nice, but here we need to take that idea and replicate it. So that's my message, is that, okay, we're working on this great project by ourselves, but if you share that information, share the resources with different cities, they can take those models and have a greater impact.
Thank you for all that great work that you're doing out in Half Moon Bay. That's so needed. And of course, some great takeaway quotes from Ed as well. Listen more and talk less, and I find that I'm doing that these days, and establish your credibility. So we might have time for one question. I know we're right at time. We're supposed to end about 10:40. So if anybody
Questions?
has a question or comment? No?
I think when we talk about addressing racial disparity and we talk about reconciliation within our community, and I really love that, Ed, you brought up the historical context. I think it's really important that we kind of start there, right? Because oftentimes we wonder where it's mysterious that we have these sentiments that are literally woven into the fabric of our society, and obviously that extends into our communities, into our homes, into our personal lives, into our professional lives. And without that historical context, I don't think we'll really be able to get that far, quite frankly. Oftentimes we start further upstream or further downstream, and we need to go further upstream. And so I love the fact that, within schools like Elm Rock Elementary School District, and they're talking about ethnic studies, and there's still a lot of work, obviously, that needs to be done around that. But at the end of the day, until we really address how this is woven into the fabric of our communities, and take the time to create healing spaces where we can empathize with one another, see the intersectionality of our histories, will we ever be able to achieve reconciliation, really, quite frankly, as far as the disparities between women in the workforce, or when we talk about racial disparities. And so the ceremonial opening, I thought was beautiful to have that in this space. But without context, and why is it important to have gatherings like this start with some kind of an acknowledgement, is really important. Because when we talk about equity, I love that little graphic where it shows the people on different levels of stools to have a look over at the baseball field. When we think about BIPOC and the work that's being done within Black, Indigenous people of color, oftentimes the I in that BIPOC completely remains invisible. And so when Divina gathers us like this and provides a space for Indigenous representation, it's that kind of work that needs to be done for me in all spaces, because we need to be able to elevate our Indigenous community who continues to fight against an ongoing genocide here, right here in San Jose, right here in Santa Clara County, throughout the nation and throughout the Americas. So I want to commend Divina for providing that space and launching today's wonderful gathering with this kind of a conversation, because I hope that we can work towards love and acceptance and equity in our communities, but we can't do that without addressing, yes, we can go all the way back to Teotihuacan, but quite frankly, it wasn't until 1978 that American Indians had our rights to practice our spiritual ways, what they call religion. Until 1978, up until 1993, those things were still in question, and there's still practices today that are in question. So we are working through an ongoing genocide, and we need all of your help so that we can achieve what it is that we envision for our community moving forward. Thank you all for your time and your beautiful representation.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank
How about
you.
a round of applause for our panel here?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Anna and
Thank you.
Suma, and thank you, people. Again, we're starting conversations, and they're going to be difficult, but if you can collaborate and reach out, whether it's a corporate ERG, a nonprofit, other organizations that want to make a positive change, let's start today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Thanks.